Welcome to all of you joining us for this evening's event. Glad to have you with us. We'll give it a couple minutes since we have a lot of folks registered, and it takes a minute for everyone to join, but welcome. And again, welcome to everybody joining us. People are trickling in from the waiting room, so we'll give it a couple more minutes for everyone to enter, but glad you could all join us for this evening's event, and welcome. Again, welcome to those of you joining us. So just giving it another minute or so to allow everyone to enter the room from the registration page. Thank you for joining us this evening. And it looks like just about everyone is entered, or we're getting close to stabilizing numbers. So welcome everyone to join. For those of you joining us, our Before You Hit Submit workshop for transfer students, non-traditional students, military-connected applicants. My name is Alex Buston. I'm representing Princeton University and joined with my great colleagues here to represent a group of colleges and universities for you tonight: Amherst College, Wesleyan University, Williams College, and Yale University. Among them, we're all excited to be with you this evening. It's four of us this evening. Unfortunately, the representative from Wesleyan University was unable to attend due to a last minute personal conflict, but they are represented here. We will do our best to represent them as well. So glad you could all join us for this live webinar where we are coming to you tonight from our respective college campuses. And we have some great information to provide for you, as well as a live Q&A that we will get towards the end of the presentation. We had hundreds and hundreds of registrants tonight, which is great to see so much interest. And most of you submitted a question or multiple questions as well. So we have a lot of questions that we hope to cover in the Q&A, but also some of it will also be covered in the information that we'll be providing you tonight. So we do ask that you're welcome to enter questions at any time. Maybe hold some of those until we get to the Q&A in case those get answered in front. We do have live captions as noted here as well that you can follow along if you activate the live transcript or live captions button on your screen. That will take you to that as well. And finally, we do ask that there's no at-home recording or screenshots of this presentation as a live presentation, but do note that as an attendee, or even if you registered and weren't able to attend, we do plan to send follow-up material to all registrants following this presentation, including an official recording of the presentation, production quality permitting as well. So we hope to be able to pass that on to you as well. So before we introduce ourselves, as I mentioned, I just want to mention a quick point about why we all travel together and why we share information across five distinct universities, all with distinct personalities, but also with some commonalities and concepts that allow us to cover some joint concepts and missions within our overall university missions, our admission processes, and specifically our transfer admission processes as well. And we do travel together in person, but we also do so virtually through this space as well. So glad you all could join us here this evening or watching this recording. There are some fundamental principles that we all share across our institutions, which certainly play a role in our admission processes, as we'll explain in the coming moments. We are all liberal arts and sciences colleges at the undergraduate level. Some of us are colleges, some of us are universities, but fundamentally at the undergraduate university level, we offer a curriculum that values the liberal arts and sciences. Not just a question of the range of disciplines that we offer across the arts and the humanities, the social sciences, the natural sciences, and also in some cases engineering, but also interdisciplinary learning and a very small ratio of students to faculty. So these are institutions where you are learning in very small settings in the classroom, in residential spaces, in other academic and non-academic spaces that allows you to learn from your peers and have small discussion-based classes, learning from other students as much as you learn from these very low ratios of faculty members and mentors and administrators as well. Liberal arts incorporates, like I said, a wide variety of different academic disciplines, including the sciences. And then we believe in expertise in those fields, such as one major in one area or another, is not a sufficient way to get the best possible education. But interdisciplinary learning through breadth of study, in addition to depth of study within your major, is critical. Understanding where the connections are between political or socio-political, geographic concerns or sociological concerns, implications of scientific research or whatever are incredibly important. So we want students to get involved in a lot of different areas in a lot of different ways. And we also know that learning happens inside and outside the classroom. So you don't find too many commuter students at our institutions. These are communities beyond just where you are in the classroom or in those academic spaces, but also in extracurricular areas, in clubs and organizations and residential spaces where that learning continues outside of just what the transcript provides for you, just what the academic opportunities provide for you as well. Because there are so many opportunities to learn from your diverse peers, we believe those diverse communities, those diverse voices and perspectives add value. This is not just about geographic diversity or ideological diversity, but this is about life experience diversity, where you come from, what you've done. Are you coming directly from high school? Are you coming directly as a traditional college student? Are you coming as someone with a wealth of experience in the professional realm, in the military realm, where that learning can also impact not just how you carry yourself and what you get for yourself out of our academic institutions, but how you contribute and what you can contribute to the learning community for others as well. So this adds real value to our campuses where students are learning from each other beyond just what faculty mentors are providing. And as a result of this depth of study, as well as breadth across disciplines and across academic and non-academic areas, we provide great resources for our students to have strong graduation outcomes and success. It's not just a question of being prevalent or proficient in many things, but a master of nothing. You get a little bit of both of those things. You get great depth of expertise and guidance in the area of study you're interested in, but also, like I said, great connections across diverse disciplines, diverse perspectives that allow you to really thrive and get some of the top postgraduate outcomes possible, whether it's high-ranking graduate or professional programs, job placement with high-earning careers. That interdisciplinary experience allows you to unite those disciplines is very highly valued by those postgraduate programs as well. So job placement, graduate school readiness is not just an accident based on the way our students perform and the guidance they get here. These are highly valued by our institutions. But like I said, these are common things that we share. But we also all have our own personalities, our own different ways of achieving some of these concepts that are not necessarily better or worse, but just different. And just like subjective fits for anything, one may or may not be a stronger fit for you or another. So we encourage you to get to know each institution individually. So to kick that off, we'll just quickly all introduce ourselves and share a little bit more information about how you can get to know us all individually and how we differ across the spectrum of higher education. So we'll flip it over and pass it over to my colleague Nick to start with Amherst.
All right, thanks so much, Alex. And thanks to all of you for taking time out of your evenings or days, wherever you may be joining from, whenever you may be watching this. Thanks for taking time to learn more about our institutions and fine-tuning your applications before our transfer deadlines. My name is Nick Fritz. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a Senior Assistant Director of Admission at Amherst College, located in Amherst, Massachusetts. I am part of our transfer and military teams. Specifically, I'm your point of contact for two-year transfer and military application. So feel free to grab my email. It's on the screen here. And then a quick little snapshot into Amherst. You'll see something that makes us unique. We have an open curriculum and we're part of a 5-college consortium. Happy to talk more about that a bit later, but you have a lot of independence and flexibility in terms of your course of study while you're here. We do have a small transfer community, but around 2/3 of that community is coming from a 2-year college experience, community college experience, rather than coming from larger 4-year institutions. And we do have a bunch of virtual programming coming up throughout the rest of the month. So feel free to check that out if you want to learn more about Amherst and see more about our community. And I'm going to turn things back to Alex for Princeton.
Thanks, Nick. And just a quick reintroduction. My official title is Director of Transfer and Military and Veteran Admission as Senior Associate Dean in the Admission Office. So if you are a transfer student or non-traditional military professional or otherwise, I manage the team that manages all of that information. You can certainly reach out to me, and my colleagues and I are happy to speak to you about Princeton and connect you also with some of our students to get to help you get to know the campus and what that's like from the transfer student perspective as well. Princeton University is one of those colleges, as I mentioned, that is a university, but also functions as a liberal arts college at the undergraduate level, kind of smaller to mid-size, maybe larger in the context of small liberal arts colleges here as well. About 5,500 undergrads, soon to be about 5,800 as we consider continue some expansion. So about smaller to mid-size, but also twice as many undergrads as graduate students, about 3,000 graduate students. So very heavily undergraduate focused institution. We are located in Princeton Township, New Jersey. So if you drew a line from New York City to Philadelphia, we're kind of right in the middle of that corridor right there as well. We are a major research university with great research opportunities for all of our students, including undergraduates, but again, operate as a liberal arts college. Very small student faculty ratio, a 5-to-1 student faculty ratio. So you get really high support at the undergraduate level as all students, but also students with our transfer and veteran and non-traditional student programs that is managed through our resource centers as well, where you have advising specific to that experience as well. We do guarantee research on all academic opportunities for all students, including transfer students, and including those who may have non-traditional life experiences as well. We do guarantee family housing, pet-friendly housing, as well as a residential community. It's not required, but it does provide that experience as well. There's a lot more I can tell you about Princeton, about most of our transfers coming in through as community college students or veterans, but also from four-year colleges and all different ranges as well. The best way I get that to you is if you just come visit us for a Transfer Tuesday, whether it's virtually or also in-person programs we have as well. You can sign up here as well, or just Google Princeton Transfer Tuesdays for those of you who are connected to the Military Mondays, as well as a similar program. We have information sessions on campus virtually and also some office hours if you want to just join an open Zoom and talk to us about Princeton, learn more about Princeton or about the application process as we near the deadlines. We'd love to have you and speak more to that. So that's all for me for now on Princeton. I'll pass it back to Nick to talk about, Mike to talk about Williams.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Hey, everyone. My name is Mike Burns. I'm an assistant director of admission at Williams College, and I'm part of the two-person team inside our Office of Admission that manages the transfer and veteran program, which is led by one of our associate directors of admissions, Dean Mendes. I'm here to talk to you a little bit, or just introduce Williams College to you if you're not familiar with us. We are a small residential liberal arts college in the northwesternmost corner of the state of Massachusetts. We have about 2,300 students. We're about an hour east of Albany, New York, and also about 90 minutes away from Amherst College, also on the virtual call here today. There's a lot of things I could tell you about. We're a small liberal arts college, but a few things I just want to focus on right now that is always a really big point of interest for all of our prospective transfer, veteran, non-traditional students out there is that we have this program called tutorial classes, where about 10% of our courses each year are offered with just 2 students and 1 professor in each class, and that's it. It's about as intimate and rigorous of a class as you can possibly imagine. And this is kind of the academic and intellectual opportunity that it gets a lot of students interested in Williams College. Right now, for our transfer, veteran, and non-traditional student community on campus, it's a small but mighty group. We have typically about 40 to 50 students in a given year. The overwhelming majority of them, about 85% of those students, if not more, are coming from 2-year colleges across the country. They're coming from community colleges across the United States. We have flexible housing available. We guarantee housing across all 4 years for all students at Williams. We do have flexible housing for our transfer, veteran, and non-traditional and veteran students in particular, where we have apartment style residences for them. So they're not living in the dorms with the other students, but they have this housing that is paid for by the college that they live in during their time at the school. We also have the option for students to relinquish transfer credits so they can spend more time at Williams College to either double major or pursue other interests and continue on with their 4-year degree, and their financial aid packages that they receive carry over during their entire time at the school. Again, I can tell you so much more about Williams. We got a lot to cover during this slide deck today, but I will highlight that next Tuesday on February 10th at 8 p.m., we're just having a virtual chat session with a couple of our current transfer and veteran students on campus. They're just hopping on a Zoom at 8 p.m. Eastern time to answer questions. If you're interested in participating in that program, there's a registration link for it on our Office of Admissions page, and you'll also find a lot of their information there for any transfer, veteran, non-traditional students out there who want to learn more about Williams College. And I'll hand it off to Taylor now to tell you a little bit more about Yale as well as Wesleyan.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. My name is Taylor Brown. I'm one of the associate directors of undergraduate admission at Yale University. So I am on the team that oversees all of our admission for our non-traditional students, led by my colleague, Patricia Way. So I'm going to be introducing both Wesleyan and Yale. Full disclosure, I used to work at Wesleyan as well, so I do know a little bit about both institutions. So Wesleyan University is located in Middletown, Connecticut, about a couple hours away from Boston and a couple of hours away from New York City. And they're particularly well known for having an open curriculum. So being able to not have a strict list of courses that all students need to take before graduation. So there's a lot of flexibility associated with that. Wesleyan's also particularly well known for having some very unique interdisciplinary majors, so much that Alex was talking about earlier with respect to making ties between different academic areas. Um, Wesleyan typically enrolls about 50 or so transfer and military veterans every year, and I know that cohort has been growing for them every year. And there's a really strong emphasis on research for them. So students are able to get access to doing research for credit, as well as for pay. And it's across different subject areas, whether you're interested in physics, or film and everything in between. So that's Wesleyan University. And then as for Yale, Yale operates a little bit differently from some other schools with respect to the admissions process for military veterans. So we basically have three different admission pathways to get into Yale. So there's the first year student pathway. So that's how most of our, that's how most high school seniors would apply. There's the transfer pathway, which is usually for students who have enough credits to be coming in as a sophomore or a junior. And then we have the Eli Whitney Students Program. And this is the program that most of our military veterans opt to pursue. So the Eli Whitney Students Program is for students who have been out of high school for 5 or more years by the time of matriculation, so not at the time of application. And the Eli Whitney program has a really great cohort feel to it. It's about 50% veteran and about 50% civilian. And so you're really going to see students from all walks of life within the Eli Whitney Students Program. And while you are a student at Yale, you get to take all the same courses that our first year students and our transfer students are taking. And even if you don't necessarily live on campus, all of our Eli Whitney students receive an affiliation with one of our 13 different residential colleges. And so that way you get to really be a part of that full community that is both academic and social. So lots more that I would love to talk about with respect to Yale, but I know we've got a lot of ground to cover, so I will kick things back to Alex. Sorry, my bad. Totally forgot I was the next slide. With respect to what we're talking about when it comes to the admissions process. So some of you might have heard the term holistic review before. And so basically what this means is that we don't operate on the basis of rules, right? So we're not going to admit you on the basis of just a GPA or an SAT or an ACT or how many of X type of courses have you taken. Holistic review basically means that we really are looking at the whole person. We want to know your story. Right? We want to know what you are going to bring to our community. I know for Yale, the way that we like to frame it, and I'm sure my colleagues here frame it in a similar kind of way, is that we're looking for the students who are going to contribute to the community and also students who we think are going to get a lot out of the community. So we want to know about who you are and what your life experiences are, right? Especially as for students who are adult learners, they have all kinds of different experiences and there are all kinds of different dimensions of diversity that they bring to the class. And so we want to know about not just your academic interests, although that's very important, of course, but we want to know about your professional backgrounds. We want to know about your military service. We want to know about the perspective that you are going to bring into our classroom and into our community, right? Because part of what makes Yale Yale, and I can say the same about my colleagues here for their institutions, is that you really get exposed to people who have different perspectives, who have different ways of looking at problems, different ways of different life experiences. And so we want to know what those are for you. And so if you take a look at the slide here, these are all the different pieces that go into our holistic review. And so some of these things you probably would expect to see, right? So transcript, we want to know that that you're capable of succeeding in a rigorous academic environment. So making sure that you're taking a variety of courses, making sure that you are taking core academic courses and that you are doing well in them. We do look at test scores if you choose to submit them. It is optional for Eli Whitney students at Yale, but that's something that could be part of your academic picture should you have that in your application. We're going to look at letters of recommendation. And this is important because it can give us some of the more intangible aspects of your candidacy, right? What do you like in the classroom? What do you bring in your writing? How do you think, right? And so the letters of recommendation can be very helpful for us in that regard. We look at your extracurricular activities, which we'll talk a little bit about more in depth, but essentially we want to know, what are you doing outside of the classroom, right? A lot of the students who apply to our institutions are strong students, but we want to know how they're going to engage in the resources around them. And then finally, we're going to look at essays. And the essays are really important because this is one of the few parts of the application where we are hearing directly from you, right? When we're looking at the transcript, that is what your teachers tell us about your performance. Same goes for letters of recommendation. The essay is the chance for you to tell us your story, right? That's what makes the applications human, right? And so all these things together constitute holistic review, and every single student is going to be looked at. Every student who's admitted to any of these schools is going to have multiple sets of eyes on it, right? So they are discussed through a committee process, and every application is looked at within that holistic lens and also within a contextual lens as well, right? We're going to look to see if you've taken advantage of the opportunities that have been made available to you within your specific school and within your specific set of circumstances. So that's the holistic review in a nutshell. And now I will pass things over to Nick.
Thanks so much, Taylor. So on the subject of essays, I think it's a really great use of our time to really talk about the essays and all of the different types of student writing that you're going to encounter throughout the application. And I think that while all of these pieces that Taylor just mentioned are incredibly important to framing who you are as a unique individual applicant, I think in some ways the essays or the student writing in general really gives you kind of the most real estate in the application to kind of highlight who you are as an individual and how you can differentiate yourself from all of the other applicants in our pool, right? A lot of the applicants that we're going to be seeing have similar grade point averages or are coming from similar backgrounds or have different lived experiences within different populations, right? A lot of our 2 years may share a lot of overlapping traits. A lot of our military veterans may have a lot of overlapping traits. So your essays or the writing is a good way to say, here's why I'm unique. Here's why I am a different kind of student and am worth your time and attention and what I'm going to bring to your institution, right? So really make sure that you're playing to your strengths throughout the writing and in all of the different ways that it may show up on the application. The first way that you'll encounter it is through the personal statement or like the required essays, right? And this first bullet point is kind of true through all of the writing that you'll be putting in your application, but you want to be reflective and authentic. Really talk about the things that matter most to you and highlight those pieces of your identity, your lived experiences, your goals, all of those pieces. The more you can highlight what matters most to you, what you hope to get out of your time at our institution, why our institutions might be the right fit for you, the more genuine you are in that, the more it's going to shine through the application. You shouldn't be thinking about what we want to hear in an application. If you spend so much time thinking, oh, what does Wesleyan want to hear about? Or what's going to make me get into Princeton or Williams, you risk kind of missing the mark on what it is that that admissions officer wants to hear, right? If you're thinking, oh, they really want to hear all about my passion for X interest, and they're like, maybe we are kind of at capacity in that field, you could actually be, overstepping or doing yourself a disservice. So instead, really talk about what matters most to you, because ultimately that is what we want to hear. What matters to you? What are you going to take advantage of? How are you going to use your time on campus? You may find that different applications are going to have a different number of essays. And if you have the opportunity to use different essays with different questions, really think about how you can cohesively use that space meaningfully. Highlight different parts of your journey, different pieces that are important to your story, whether one is academic and one is personal or social. Maybe you'll choose one to talk about military experience if you're a veteran. Really make sure that you are using the essays to highlight different pieces of yourself. And I think that is a common misstep that many students will take is repeating the same kind of story or the same pieces within multiple essays. right? In some cases, students might think, oh, if I say this in multiple ways in different essays, it's going to come across as being very important to me. And while that is true, you also run the risk of it saying, well, it's the same kind of thing. They're repeating space, and I wish I had more context to who this person is as an individual, as an applicant. So really use your personal statements to highlight the things that matter most to you. The second piece that you might encounter are short answers or supplements. These are typically more institutional specific. And I just want to highlight that with a transfer application, a lot of times the personal statements or essays will also be institution specific. So really make sure you're looking at the requirements and what those questions are asking so that you actually answer those questions. But a lot of times the supplemental essays or short answers are really how we determine fit. Not only are you a good fit for us, but are you a good fit for us and are we a good fit for you? Right. So you should make sure that those questions are really tailored towards the specific institution. And you should try to avoid copying and pasting those across applications to different institutions. Right. And I think there are a number of reasons that you should avoid copying and pasting. One, obviously, we can kind of tell, we read enough of these essays that we can tell if something is pretty generic and kind of geared towards a wider audience. And it's not often because students will just forget to change the names every now and then. But the real reason I say you should avoid copying and pasting is if you're applying to a place like Amherst, for example, and you're struggling to answer a specific question of why Amherst, you should ask yourself, why am I applying to Amherst? Is it because I really want to take advantage of the open curriculum and the flexibility I have? Is it because I want to be in the area and I have family there? Or is it because I have an advisor or so-and-so telling me that I should apply there? If you really are struggling with a reason of why an institution is the right fit for you, maybe ask yourself, is it worth applying? There are so many great options. You want to make sure you are finding the right fit for you and your goals and what you're hoping to achieve. Okay. The next piece that you'll encounter at some institutions is going to be analytical writing. This will vary across institutions in terms of whether it is optional or required. At Amherst, for example, it's optional to submit an analytical paper. But if you choose to go that pathway, if you choose to submit or if you're required to, again, make sure you're following the instructions of what is being asked and choose writing that is going to best highlight your most recent writing ability and is going to show, in most cases, a thesis-driven or analytical piece, right? You should probably not be choosing lab reports, creative pieces, journal entries, things like that, unless you are specifically asked for that. If you're applying for a creative writing program, you probably should be submitting some poetry or something like that, right? If you have a paper published in a scientific journal with all of your research, that is a great accomplishment. It should absolutely be highlighted in a resume or in other pieces of the application, but maybe that's not going to be the best example of an analytical piece. Again, institutions will vary in what they want to see, so make sure you're following those guidelines, but use analytical writing to say, here's how I'm going to show up as a student. Here's what you're going to get in a classroom from me. And you can usually tie this with letters of recommendation, which Mike will talk about in a little bit. But make sure your analytical writing is going to say, hey, yeah, I can talk about myself in the personal statements and more of those reflective pieces, but I can also hold my weight academically as well. So it's a great way to include, and even if it's optional, I like to encourage people to think about submitting analytical pieces if they have it. But again, if it's optional, totally up to you. There is no expectation that you do so. The last place where writing can come into play is really any other part of the application that has writing in it, right? We're looking at your writing for, general understanding of syntax and grammar and all of that. Are you able to revise and edit and do all of that stuff? But we really want to see who you are as an individual, as I said at the top of this, right? So use additional information to highlight different pieces of your journey, reframe challenges and things that you may have struggled with over the course of your timeline. If high school wasn't great and you had a 1.8 GPA and then you started community college, dropped out, joined the military, tried again, went on whatever kind of journey, give us that context and additional information. Tell us your story. Really let us see into the journey you've gone to get to where you are now applying to these great institutions, right? On that same note, when you get to personal resumes, again, we'll talk about resumes with extracurriculars in just a second, but use the resume to highlight your achievements. Don't feel like you have to sacrifice a personal essay or a supplemental to give a narrative form of that. You've accomplished so much in your life, whether it is, because you are working full time, because you are part of the service. Really make sure that your resume is doing the work of your resume and your essays are doing the point of, or the work of highlighting you as an individual. And then finally, for those who are military service members or veterans, we encourage you to look for organizations like Service to School. Use something like the VetLink Addendum where you can have an extra essay. A lot of times I'll talk to veterans and they're like, should I really lean into my military service? I think we already got a question in the chat about that. And it's really up to you, right? But if you are kind of on the fence, your VetLink addendum can let you talk about military service. And then you have the other essays on the application to talk about your civilian life and things like that. So it really gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility to craft an essay or an application that is unique to you, that is going to highlight your strengths, your goals, your ambitions, and really give us a sense of how you're going to show up on our campuses. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Mike at Williams, and he's going to talk a little bit about extracurriculars.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Extracurriculars, the co-curriculars, the supporting experiences sections of the Transfer Common application. As we were discussing before, when you're working on the writing in your application, you're writing your personal essays, additional info, VetLink addendums, any other material that you're producing for the application process. A lot of other things are going to be set in stone at that point, from your transcripts to and your grades, your letters of recommendation, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Those are going to be written by other people that are involved, that are teaching you or involved in your life. But this is another section and component of the application that you're going to be completing as part of the application process itself, for us to get a better sense of who you are as a student and also how you've been spending your time and what takes up your time and what matters to you most through your academic journey that you all are uniquely participating in. One of the great things that we can understand from your extracurricular profiles is your campus involvement. If you're able to be engaged with your campus at a community college, a four-year school, whatever institution you may be currently attending, and whatever that experience may look like for you as a student. It could be an honors program that you're participating in, maybe some sort of more national or broader programs that support honors academic enrichment opportunities like PTK organizations, which are across community colleges campuses across the country, the Transfer Scholars Network, the Honors Transfer Consortium of California. Those can all be highlighted in your extracurricular sort of academic awards or other opportunities that you may be involved with there. For our active duty service members or our veteran students out there, those who've had the opportunity to participate in the Warrior Scholar Program and participate in one of those week-long boot camps at maybe one of the schools on this call here today or another one across the United States, it's always a great opportunity to mention in your co-curricular profile, as well as service to school as well if you're having experiences and working with them closely. But more broadly, you might be just having other kinds of engagements at your current schools that we would like to learn more about. You could be involved with a writing center. Maybe you're playing on a basketball team at the school. Perhaps you are engaged with a mock trial club. You started a different organization. You're working at a school store, whatever that may be for you as a specific student. This is the opportunity for us to learn about those experiences. We want to look like what that participation was like for you, maybe what some of the values were involved that got you involved with those opportunities in the first place and why you thought they would help you grow as a student when you were involved with those organizations. These things can be really valuable to us when we understand the ways in which you engage with the communities that are around you at any given time. Another great opportunity to highlight is any research opportunities that you may have had as a student while you're attending school right now. That can be working in a lab potentially, or working with a faculty member at your school in the stacks of the library, or another humanities-based, whatever the project entails. It's another great opportunity for us to learn about an experience that you're having that's enriching your academic experience and complementing it, but is also happening potentially outside of the classroom as well. Another great thing that can be accomplished in the co-curricular section as well is we're not just interested in the sort of like experiences that you're going to be having that are associated with your specific college communities. By all means, those are incredibly meaningful to us, but we want to get to know you as an entire person, as a student. And so just as valuable in those sections is you to express and communicate any sort of professional or life experiences that are happening. We really want to understand how you're spending your time while you're attending the school that you're attending. We see students out there because of their living situation or their context when they're applying as a transfer to one of our schools. They have the opportunity to be involved in a lot of different co-curricular opportunities that are being organized at their school that have the students participating in it on an annual basis. But at the same time, we see other students out there that when they're applying to transfer to one of our schools, they are full-time students or maybe even balancing full-time or part-time school, and they have other significant responsibilities outside of the classroom. They could be working full-time, they can be an active duty service member, they could have significant family responsibilities. There's really a broad array of these experiences, and we value all of them because we believe they do enrich all of our academic and non-academic communities at our schools. So really, this is a great section on your application to highlight those experiences. If you're working part-time or full-time, we want to know about those job experiences and what they meant to you. We also want to learn about your military service or deployment. By all means, if you're a student who's affiliated with service to school, their addendum is going to give us a lot of really valuable context on those experiences as well. But you're always, of course, more than welcome to include more information in the extracurricular profile as well. If you have significant family responsibilities, say you're a caretaker for an elderly relative, perhaps you're supporting a family member who's been engaged with a long-term illness, maybe you are even a parent yourself and you have custody of children and you're managing that. Whatever is taking up your time and is of value to you, we want to know about these experiences in your application. And then finally, any other internship, pre-professional development opportunities, of course, we like to know about. There's sort of a distinction that can be talked about, and these schools will give you the opportunity to upload a resume or CV along with your application. A resume, in some ways, it's a different kind of document, I'd say, because for the most part, when people think of a resume, they are thinking about a document that they would bring to a job interview, essentially, to show like the most relevant, pertinent professional experiences that they have to their potential hiring manager or that employer. And so it is similar to the kind of information that is being communicated in a college application, but it's a little bit different. The one thing that I will say that it is valuable at resumes is that it's oftentimes a very streamlined way for admissions officers to understand a student's full academic journey, or at least their professional one, if they have been out of school for a significant period of time. Say you graduated from high school a decade ago, you were in the military for about 6 years, you've been working full time for a bit before returning to school. Oftentimes resumes can be a streamlined way of presenting that information, and we can gather a lot of that as well from the Common App or the transfer application platform, but it's oftentimes just framed a little bit differently. But even for students who maybe didn't have that same sort of experience and weren't out of high school for as long of a period of time. Perhaps you graduated from high school, you worked a few jobs, and now you're in a community college right now and you're planning to transfer. Again, it's all about that narrative and sort of the information, how it's communicated. We oftentimes can find it collectively across the application. That's really one of the things that we get most valuably from the resume when we're evaluating that. Some schools will, I'm not sure if many schools out there will require that document from you, but oftentimes schools will reach out for it if they feel like they need more information about an applicant when they're evaluating it. So that's a little bit more about extracurriculars, but we'll switch over to the next slide now, and I'll tell you a little bit about letters of recommendation. So the letters of recommendation, you've written your personal essays, the additional info, your vet link addendums, your co-curricular profiles. That is all done. One of the last things you're going to be doing, and many of you probably have already done by now, potentially if you're applying to transfer in this spring deadline season, is ask for letters of recommendation from faculty members who have had you as a student. Now, most institutions out there are going to require at least 2 letters of recommendation who should be from recent academic instructors. Recent is always incredibly valuable in these contexts and experiences because we want to hear from teachers who've had the opportunity to have you as a student in the classroom recently, because they will have a best sense of who you are as a student right now and what you would bring to our classroom communities at our schools. In many ways, in-person instructors are often preferred because the classes at all of our schools, those are going to be in-person classes. You're going to be in the classroom with the other peers at our schools, engaging in collaborative work, having debates together, really diving deep on the text and the work at hand. And we want to get a sense of who you might be as a student in those settings. That said, we understand that there's a lot of students out there who apply to transfer to our schools who maybe have not had the opportunity to participate in many or as many in-person classes that they would like, if any at all, because they're balancing other responsibilities on top of being a student at the given time. So you may also ask for letters of recommendation from teachers who have had you in those spaces, but in any case, we prefer those in-person instructors when possible. And then high school teachers, from a case-by-case basis, they may be permitted, but again, the recency is the real key here. We want to hear from teachers who've had you most recently as a student in the classroom, because oftentimes they will give us the most valuable context about who you are in the room. But you might be wondering, why are these letters of recommendation so valuable? What are the kinds of things that are being communicated or expressed? And what might these teachers be communicating to these admissions officers that get them really excited about certain students from there? Well, for the one thing, they give us just a different perspective on who you are as a student. From your side of the application, we learn a lot about, what you're involved in at your college community, at your community college, maybe your four-year school, wherever you're attending. We learn about your work experiences, your values from your personal essay, these other broader experiences. These letters of recommendation really give us a sense of who you are as a student in the classroom, how you engage with the materials at hand, how you collaborate with peers around you, what gets you enthusiastic about learning, how do you respond to curiosity, are you driven by complex problem solving, what are the things that get you going and motivated in the classroom. Really strong teachers, they notice these things about their students and they're really good at communicating them about to their these admissions offices. And they do a really great job of advocating for their students in their classroom throughout this process because they want the best for them as well. They want to see these students succeed and go off and complete four-year bachelor's degrees at a broad array of colleges across the country. And they want to tell us about how great their students are because they're just as passionate about them. And we can feel that passion coming through in their letters. Now, outside of the two required letters and recommendations from academic instructors, other recommendations are typically optional, but are allowed by these schools. These can run a broad array. One of the most common ones we will see from active duty service members or military veteran applicants are going to be from commanding officers in the military, supervisory officers. That just gives us another perspective on that student from a very valuable experience that they have had in their life that probably would not be able to be communicated from another person like a faculty member just because they would not know that student in that context. But we do see additional letters of recommendation from a broad array of other sources. It could be from research advisors, internship supervisors at full-time jobs, other people that just have another valuable perspective on that student that would not be most likely communicated elsewhere in the application. Those additional letters of recommendation can be valuable. I will say, just be mindful if you decide to ask for additional letters of recommendation, really ask yourself the question, do I believe this person is going to provide an additional valuable perspective on me as not only a student, but as a person that would be important for these missions offices to understand? Chances are, if the answer is yes, it could be good to ask that individual to write you a letters of recommendation, but you just maybe want to consider not having too many in your application as a whole, because you don't want to have it's not a bad thing if there's letters that are repeating themselves in some ways because they're offering similar perspectives. But in some ways, at that point, we're not learning new things about that student as a student or as a person. But in any case, there's always so many wonderful things to be learned from these letters because these people really feel really strongly about these students, these employees, these service members, and they want to see them succeed at these four-year schools and help them through the transfer process along the way. I'll pass it back off to Nick now, and I believe he'll talk a bit about, I think it's the financial aid slide that we're at.
Just kidding. It would help if I unmuted. Thanks, Mike. Um, so one of the most important pieces of the transfer process or the application process in general is financial aid. We understand that the finances that come with attending institutions, such as the ones represented here today, feels like there's a price tag that may make us inaccessible. And I think Alex kind of highlighted this at the top. We hope that your takeaway from today is that that is not true. Our institutions are incredibly accessible to students, whether you are coming from a two-year community college, whether you are in the service, whether you are working full-time, whatever your situation is, you should feel like you have access to at least engaging in this process and seeing what financial aid might look like for you. What you'll find at all five of our institutions is that we offer need-based financial aid, and that is true even for transfer students. When we say need-based, what we mean is that we're meeting 100% of demonstrated or calculated financial need, right? So it's not just saying here's merit aid or athletic scholarship and that's all that you have, or the earlier you apply, the more access to funding you have. If you apply to our institutions and if you apply for financial aid, we are guaranteeing that we will meet 100% of those demonstrated costs for you. Additionally, our financial aid packages are designed for the total cost of attendance. They are not designed just for tuition or room and board, but they'll include a lot of other resources as well. Things like textbooks can be largely included, health insurance. A lot of times transportation can be included, personal expenses, emergency funds, depending on income brackets and things like that. So really engage with the institutions you're looking to apply to and seeing what financial aid looks like for you. And know that, again, we are designed to make the hidden costs of college really kind of disappear. We want you to know what you're getting into up front, and we want to actually break down as much of those barriers as we can to make sure that a student at our institution, regardless of their financial background or their socioeconomic status, has access to all of the resources that our institutions provide. We don't want someone to feel like they're excluded from studying abroad or having access to a research lab because they can't afford those things. We also offer no loan policies. So the expectation for most of our institutions, if not all of them here, is that the financial aid you receive from us does not need to be repaid back to the institution after you graduated or graduate. Again, it may vary, so you should check with financial aid offices, but that's generally the guise for our schools. If you want to get a little bit more in the weeds on what that looks like at our institutions, we often have online price calculators that give you an estimate of what financial aid might look like. I know for Amherst for an example at Amherst, we have two different price calculators. One is more broad-based, and another is specific that uses or historical information from financial aid, so you can get a pretty accurate estimate of what financial aid might look like. So you have options, and you can use those calculators to then start a conversation with the financial aid offices at the institution, saying this is where it's targeting. What is that realistic, or can I expect that to move in a number of directions? Another thing we really like to highlight are fee waivers. If you are at a two-year college and you're working full time and you have, a kid and you're doing all these other things and you're like, I don't have an extra $75 to apply to Amherst or Williams or any of the other schools, reach out to us. We have fee waivers and are intentionally trying to make them broadly accessible to students who need access to that. So definitely ask. Don't feel like it's a burden. We want you to open the door of applying to institutions like the five of us. Um, if you get all of your financial aid materials in on time and check those deadlines and dates, they may be different from the actual transfer application deadlines. But your financial aid package should be presented with the offer of admission, assuming you have everything in on time. Our hope by giving you that information up front is that you have all of the information you need as you're making your decision. We don't want to put someone in a position of saying, I got into a great school like Princeton, but I don't know if I can financially afford it. So I'm going to just say yes and hope for the best. Or I'm going to say no because I don't want to risk it. We want to make sure you have the information up front so that you are making the best decision for the right fit at the right point in time for you. Again, with service members and veterans, all of us are yellow ribbon schools. But we encourage you to still look at institutional aid at our schools as well. A lot of times you can save those GI bills, you can save those for dependents, for grad school, for other resources. And we would rather you just look and say, hey, maybe I can save that and do, a little bit more with the institutional aid, the resources there. So that's something that is just a good thing to keep in mind for our service members and vets. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Alex, and he's going to chat a little bit more about next steps.
Thank you, Nick, and also to Mike and Taylor for those comprehensive presentations on those facets of the process. There's a lot of information, and I hope it was useful. Again, not to worry if you don't have everything written down. We'll have a way to recap. But before we get into the Q&A, I just want to kind of filter everything into sort of next steps in preparing the application, whether it's for this year, for fall 2026, where deadlines are coming up, or maybe in some cases spring or fall of next year. Just some things to recap and maybe focus on as you go forward. So first of all, you heard this, I think, several times from all of us. Don't self-select out. I think there's a lot of things about the prestige or the selectivity or the academic reputation or the cost of these colleges that a lot of students start to think it's not a good fit for me because I'm at an open enrollment college, which isn't a selective, because I'm a 30-something-year-old parent or a non-traditional student who is not going to fit in at these colleges. We have students like yourself, whatever range you have in past life experience, in past grades or whatever, we have students like yourself on our campuses. We'd love for you to hear from them that are thriving. So never think to yourself you're not competitive. You can't be a good fit. That obviously doesn't apply to everybody, but I will tell you that these students, including the ones that we have on our campus, many of them had a similar perspective and ended up having many more better options than they would have thought had they self-selected out in the first process. So the only guarantee is that you will not be admitted. You will not have an opportunity if you do not submit an application, if you do not take a chance. And like I said, many students, especially those from community college, non-traditional backgrounds, military backgrounds, for whom our programs are built, tend to have better options than they tend to find out. We value those perspectives. We value those different experiences. Some things that make you different can make you a more competitive applicant if that has shaped your perspective in a way that is valuable to our experiences. Again, and when it comes to cost, fee waivers, financial aid policies that Nick so adeptly summarized there, these can make this much more affordable and much less of a barrier, regardless of what your individual finances are, regardless of what GI Bill or Yellow Ribbon may or may not be able to cover. These are some of the most highly resourced institutions that are, first and foremost, especially in the changing higher education and political climate, are prioritizing putting those funds towards reducing the cost, especially for lower income and middle income students, to make these institutions much more affordable. And when it comes to that mixed academic trajectory, know that we're looking for academic excellence and potential, but don't confuse that with academic perfection. Sure, some of our students have always been great students since high school, in college from start to finish, but many of our students have had an up and down trajectory. And for one, again, when we look at, are you a competitive student? Are you demonstrating academic excellence? Maybe your high school GPA or your earlier college didn't go as well. We are looking, as was mentioned earlier, at the most recent academic work. And if you've done well in those most recent semesters, that's what really suggests to us academic preparedness. And then also don't count out the positive experiences you might gain from having had to turn things around, from challenging circumstances, things that you've had to overcome. That shows resilience. That shows creativity. That shows positive life experiences that maybe, in looking at the record, don't look as pretty in terms of the overall trajectory, but can certainly serve you very well for the challenges that you'll encounter at Princeton, at Yale, Amherst, Wesleyan, Williams, or any other highly selective college. So know that those experiences certainly carry weight beyond just what is shown on your transcript. Certainly write about those as well. Secondly, you should be doing this already if you haven't. Choose an application and create an account. This applies to those of you who will be applying for fall 2026 for this year. There are several different options there. There are several third-party organizations which allow you to create an application to multiple colleges and kind of have it in one main hub. The most common examples of that are Common Application and Score Coalition Application as well. Some colleges will use one, some colleges will use both. Some of them won't even use either of them. So, for example, Princeton used to use both, but now we only use the Common Application. Some institutions like MIT, for example, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Georgetown are commonly well known for not using those programs. They have only the institution-specific applications. So know what you'll have to fill out. And if you're applying to whatever your college list might be, which ones work with which platforms. Submit materials when they're available. Don't wait to the deadline to ask for materials like transcripts or whatever. Make sure that you are providing that information, getting that information ready sooner rather than later. Ask for those recommendations earlier. It's okay for transcripts to arrive before the application deadline. Don't wait until the last minute. And just to be clear, I don't mean don't wait until the last minute to submit your application. There are plenty of students who wait until the deadline and submit their application on the deadline. We don't review that as procrastination. Use all the time that you need to make sure that you're dotting all your I's, crossing your T's, and making it the best application possible. But don't wait until the last minute to start in terms of thinking about the essays, thinking about the recommendations. I once ran into a student who told me that based on all the Princeton essays, he probably could have written it in a week, and I'm sure he could have, but I'm sure he would agree that it would likely not be the best application he could put together as well. So know that writing these essays, getting things together take time. Don't wait until the last minute to start. Maybe create a checklist, create a plan, basically, where you could get a bigger picture over for each college. That will allow you to differentiate these areas and make sure that you're keeping up with the requirements as they are listed on our application. I apologize, there may be some technical difficulties. My apologies. I think my internet connection may have frozen me for a moment, but just to recap what I was saying. Make sure after you create that Common Application account, that will allow you to review the materials, but also know that all these online checklists are listed on our website as well. So create a plan, create some kind of document, whether it is a spreadsheet, whether it is a online checklist, or it's a document that allows you to centralize all of your requirements, all the things that you will put together on your application, and track when things are due. Some things are all due at the same time, given the deadline, but know the different colleges will have different deadline requirements. Some may even give you an earlier review or start reviewing things a little bit earlier if you submit them before the deadline or by earlier priority deadlines. So I think that's point 3, Nick. If you could just advance one more to cover that as well. So yeah, there we go. That's the plan to make sure you're tracking everything. Know that after you submit your application, usually by that deadline, you will also, most colleges provide their own internal online tracking list so that you'll be able to track that, yes, they've received your application, but also your supporting materials as well. And just know this, it is always okay to get in touch with us. Contact our offices to say, hey, my name is Alex. Here's my common app ID. Here's my app ID, whatever. I want to see, can you confirm if you received this material or not? And I'll send it again and again. But supporting materials are due by the deadline, but because we know there's only so much you can do with processing times or whatever, we will accept them. We'll have some flexibility if they arrive after the end of the deadline, as long as your application is submitted by the deadline. And that's another point for the next point to consider as well. Start requesting those those recommendations, those letters as well. Don't wait until a week before the deadline or 2 weeks before the deadline. I'd say 2 weeks is kind of the minimum before the deadline, but maybe even a couple months earlier, and then setting up a follow-up within 2 weeks or so. That's the best way to require those recommendations as well, because the earlier you do it, the more that person's going to find the time and be able to write the best possible recommendation for you as well. Especially, so make sure you are following what the school requirements are, that it is a core class, a class that the institution would teach. And feel free to give recommenders some context as well. I'd say 1 page or so is sufficient. If they can write about the institution specifically, that's fine, but no, that's not required. You'll usually cover that in your essays as well. But if you give them like certain points you'd like to highlight, then maybe you can speak to your experience in the classroom or in the as a supervisor where they advised you or whatever. That's really what we want to know. Like, what are the personal qualities that stand out to them and what you were doing in the classroom or through your work with them, and how do they see that fitting into a rigorous academic environment, a residential community as well. It's not required, but usually a thank you letter or a thank you note to that recommender is usually appreciated as well, that you are obviously valuing their time and asking them for their support as well. And then obviously begin drafting the essays. I'd say if you're looking for a March 1 or similar deadline about a month out, this is something you should definitely have started already because like I said, this can take a lot of time. Make sure that, this was mentioned I think earlier, that you're not just reporting what you've done, talking about your achievements, talking about Princeton has this, Yale has that, Amherst has this, I want to do that. That's great, but make sure that you're being reflective. Make sure that you're telling us about not just what you did, but also how you felt about what you did, what you learned from what you did. Maybe those are all positive experiences, or maybe there are some negative experiences where you learn something about like I said, your resilience, your creativity, your problem-solving ability. Make sure that you're reflecting and you're telling us a little bit about not just what, but more about your perspectives and what you've learned from those experiences, and also how they've shaped your goals and how you'll take advantage of the following resources that we have at our colleges. And therefore, make sure you're answering the questions. The institution-specific questions are the ones that are going to lead you to write not just about yourself, but also where's the intersection with what you want to do and what that university can offer you. And the specifics are great here, because as much as you can connect them with what you've learned in past experiences and the specifics of the institution, that's great to know as well, because you don't want to just say, I want to apply to this college because you have a great computer science department and I want to study computer science. That's great, but hundreds of colleges have great computer science departments. What is it about that particular department, the way that institution teaches, the options they have available, the research they do, maybe the things outside of the computer science department that appeal to you? Make sure that you're showing them that you've been thoughtful about the application to that institution specifically, and that how you're going to take advantage and be thoughtful about how you're going to take advantage of those resources at that institution that might be very different from other similar colleges that you can apply to. You may not cover everything in every single essay, but use different parts of the essays and the applications to talk about different parts of your strengths. Some of them might be the academic side. Some of them might be more about professional or leadership or whatever. And know that as a non-traditional student or an older student, if this applies to you, you might have a harder time staying within the word counts because you want to write more. And that's okay too. Make sure that you use those optional sections, other sections to talk about maybe a particular semester that didn't go as well, other circumstances or context that we need to know, or just other things that you feel like are valuable for us to understand about you that aren't necessarily covered in those required essays. You have more life experience, more years under your belt than the average student. And if you want to tell us more about that, feel free to use those as well. But again, start early, revise, and edit. I think questions we get about what are the most common mistakes we see, it's essays that clearly look like they were rushed. Students didn't put enough time in them, and really making, showing us that they really value the opportunity to tell us their best selves to us and convey their message. So definitely revise. Have peer revise our editors rather as well. Help you with those applications, those essays. Whether they're people who know you can say, yeah, I can genuinely see this is your voice coming through the application, or maybe people who don't know you as well, kind of the way our perspective is in the admission office, help you write those essays to get a sense of, yeah, I can really understand your message and I can learn some more about you by reading this essay. Those are really valuable things to have as well. So again, a lot of information here as well. Again, we will recap these and cycle through these with a Q&A. One last thing I want to mention, given that a very common part of our pool are military applicants, those who have served or are currently active duty in the service. And questions are about resources or how they can find other opportunities as well for support. There's several different to show you some organizations to show you that we've partnered with on the next slide, where some of these you've heard mentioned already that can provide pretty unique support to military connected students. Like I said, primarily veterans and service members. So Service to School is one of the biggest ones. They're kind of a national nonprofit organization that provides virtual counseling. They're run by veterans for veterans and service members that can help you with the essays, help you with what you heard mentioned earlier, the Vet Link Addendum, which helps us kind of beyond just a resume, give us a little bit more information about your service. And also there's a required essay there as well. And I should mention that this organization, as well as all the ones pictured here, are entirely free. And they do connect you, like I said, with these institutions beyond that as well. Warrior Scholar Project is another great resource, another great network of a veteran founded and run nonprofit for veterans and service members, but they actually provide academic workshops as well, hosted by partner campuses, founded at Yale, I believe, in 2012 or 2013, give or take. And all of us, including about 25 or 30 other highly selected institutions, are partners where you can spend a week or two on our campuses through this program with other veterans and service members learning from our faculty with that kind of support as well. We are all Yellow Ribbon participating schools as well, so there could be some financial funding from that source too. But also, again, it really pales in comparison to our institutional financial aid, which can not only supplement the rest of it, but sometimes even replace that as well. And if there are any active duty Marines here or recently separated Marines, the Leadership Scholar Program is another great selective program to go through to provide support as you transition out of the military. Again, all of these 100% free to sign up. You could do it tonight. You could do it tomorrow. They will contact you and they will help you not only present your best self to these institutions, but also get support from veterans who have expertise in the field and have made the transition that you are looking to make as well. So moving on now, we will transition to the Q&A. I'll invite my colleagues back on the screen here. And we will cycle through the other slides that we covered as well, since it was a lot of information. And if you didn't quite get that contact info, or if you wanted to get a little bit more from some of the other slides that we had as well, we'll make sure that you can cover that as well. But as a reminder, our hope is that production quality permitting, we will be able to send a official recording of this to everyone who registered, as well as more information as well. So as I mentioned at the beginning, especially for some of you who joined late, we had hundreds and hundreds of students register, and the vast majority submitted multiple questions. So needless to say, between that and the well over 100 questions live we've already gotten this evening, we're not going to be able to answer every single one of them as much as we might like to, but we will do our best to address some of the most common themes stemming from our general planned practices, our shared practices. And again, I would encourage you to for questions more specific to each institution, how this institution does that, what's the culture and community at this institution like versus that one. Do reach out to all of us directly as well to get more information that we can kind of cover in this hour and change as well. You see some already for Amherst, and we'll cycle through everything as well. But Nick, let me pass this one on to you because I think you touched on it a little bit. That was a more direct question that came up. For non-traditional students, what are major topics that they should highlight in the application? How can that benefit them rather than detract from their chances as different types of students in our process?
Yeah, so I think like the non-traditional experience is so important because we understand that it is not a traditional pathway that you're following, right? So knowing that it's an atypical experience, you should really lean into that. So I think the best ways to address that through your application is you should really think about like how you are filling your time, right? What are you doing outside of school? We understand that you're not going to have the traditional experience of a set number of clubs and organizations on campus necessarily. So what are you doing to fill your time? Are you working? Are you taking care of family members and children and things like that? Are you actively deployed? Giving us that context for how you're spending that time is really helpful. And I think the other piece that's been highlighted at a number of different times by a few different folks tonight is any reassurance on academic trajectories. If you have blips on your transcript, if you have things that are less than stellar or are not reflective of who you are right now, giving that context can also be incredibly helpful and reassuring. when we're saying, yes, we see these grades from, 10 years ago, but we also see these grades from this semester in the last year. So giving that context of saying, here's how I'm filling my time, and here's what I've been doing to really kind of set myself up for success now can be really helpful in terms of the non-traditional experience. And I invite anyone else to add to that if they'd like.
I
I think
think you
it's great
summed it
that
up pretty
you
well.
covered that well. Sorry, Taylor, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think you summed it up pretty well.
Awesome. Let me pitch this one to you, Taylor, since you covered a little bit about financial aid.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what out-of-state students or international students should expect when it comes to financial aid and relocating to our campuses, since many of them may come from nearby, but many of them may be traveling quite a bit?
Sure. So the first thing you should know when it comes to financial aid, and sometimes we get questions about, what does financial aid look like based on whether you have in-state status or out-of-state status. So we are all private institutions, so we're not looking at that in-state status with respect to awarding aid. For Yale, we meet 100% of the demonstrated financial need of every single student who applies and is admitted to Yale, and without loans. And so basically what that means is that you fill out all your financial aid forms, applications. We will do what we refer to as a need analysis. And so we'll figure out how much money you need from Yale in order for Yale to be affordable for you. And whatever that number is, that is the amount of money that's going to be provided to you. And when we think about demonstrated need, we think about that with respect to tuition, but we also think about that with respect to housing, with respect to housing and meal plan and all those things. So you don't have to worry about the cost of attendance being a barrier because the sticker price, i.e. the price prior to financial aid for all of our institutions, it's a very high sticker price, but we also give a lot of financial aid. And so if you want to get a sense as to what you might be eligible for, we have what's called a net price calculator. Actually, we all have net price calculators, right? We should. And if you go online, you can fill out that calculator, and it'll give you a sense as to what you might be eligible for should you be admitted. And we do think about travel expenses as well. So based on where you're coming from, that's something that's taken into consideration when it comes to financial aid.
Well said. I think we can all agree that pretty much everything you said applies to all five of our colleges in terms of how we analyze aid and how there's no difference from in-state, out-of-state private institutions and that commitment to the resources that we have. So, but again, certainly reach out. I'd say at admissions, we do tend to speak about it, and know how to speak about it, but our financial aid folks are the ones to really address all the nitty-gritty questions to about as well. Mike, let me pitch something to you, which is not something a little bit outside of what we covered, but more about credit transfer and also stand or as it plays to the application process. So students are maybe used to kind of like the 2 and 2, like applying and then graduating in 2 years, and they'll notice in our applications we don't have a I'm applying for this standing or applying for that. Can you speak more to kind of how that works and then what students should be thinking about, especially with applying credit, and then also maybe even like relinquishing credit and what opportunities that can provide after transferring to our institutions?
Yeah, sure thing, Alex. So I mean, there's probably just a whole host of current majors or associate degree pathways that are being pursued by students that are participating in this session right now. But broadly speaking, at the schools on this call and maybe other schools you might be interested in applying transfer to private institutions, it does not always line up in the same sort of guaranteed credit transfer methodology or process that you'll find for in-state transfer options. So you'll find that a lot of students out there pursuing opportunities that'll either guarantee them admission to an in-state four-year option or set them up for an honors program at a state flagship school. And in order to do that, they're fulfilling a lot of general education requirements at their current community college before they transfer to that four-year school. And they have a guaranteed credit transfer partnership or articulation agreement between those institutions. So the student, once they are admitted to that school, they know exactly where they're going to be standing once they're admitted. In some ways, it's a little bit different with the way, in many ways, it is different with the way it works with these institutions, is that our offices will provide individual credit evaluations for the students that are admitted to these institutions that will then communicate I believe, I'm not sure if all of us for their offer admission, we'll communicate that information, that student-specific standing within the school itself. So there are students out there who are pursuing associate's degrees they're taking a majority liberal arts and sciences courses, the kind of classes that could be offered at our schools, generally speaking, those will transfer over to our institutions. There's kind of a case-by-case basis for online courses and their transferability, and generally speaking, at some of these institutions, asynchronous courses may not transfer as well. But if you're taking liberal arts and sciences courses that are being held in person, there's a good chance that those classes would transfer over to one of our schools. But then at the end, it's still up to the individual discretion of not just our institutions, but our individual registrar offices to determine which courses and how many of those courses would count as credits transferring over to our schools. So for the students out there who, by the time they have been admitted and will be matriculating at one of our schools, they will have completed an associate's degree. And there's some students in that category where all those credits could transfer over to one of our schools and they could start in theory as a junior at our school. But then there's going to be other students as well who maybe will have completed the same number of courses and only about 3 semesters of classes will have transferred instead, or even just 2, depending on what their course of study. For example, in pre-professional programs such as radiology, journalism, business, sometimes those courses don't transfer as often to a liberal arts college, especially speaking on behalf of Williams in that instance. But again, there's a case-by-case basis there in terms of the discretion. However, what I will say about these schools, and one of the great parts is that even if all of your courses do not end up transferring over, the financial aid is still incredibly generous through these 100% demonstrated need programs. But that's not really a significant factor in the students' decision-making process when they decide where to enroll. And these schools have such wonderful academic opportunities that by the time the students are participating in classes here, they want to take as many classes as they can at these schools. Some of the schools on this call as well have opportunities for students to relinquish credits within the institution. I forget what it is specifically with Princeton that they have as their option for relinquishing credits. I know Amherst has a program as well. It's like I forget what it's called. Amherst does not have a program. I lied. But there's opportunities at Williams and Princeton for relinquishing credits so that you can spend more time at the school and financial aid carries over in those settings. And it gives students the opportunity to pursue double majors, take on more courses, or pick up additional coursework that they'd be interested in, as well as study away programs that are available to students. Again, it's kind of up to individual discretion of these schools. But once the students are admitted to these schools, you'll have with your offer admission a credit evaluation, generally speaking, from one of the registrar's office that'll let you know where you stand in the context of that school. So you can make an informed decision about where you want to enroll. Anything else to add? Sorry if I misspoke, Nick. But...
I think you're right on. I really, emphasizing. I think you heard us all talk about how individually, how student focused we all are with these low ratios of guidance and faculty and whatnot to each student, and that certainly applies with the credit evaluation to provide the flexibility to really optimize not just how many credits can you possibly accept to get you to graduation as quickly as possible. Really, what's the optimal amount of credits for you to most fully take advantage of the Williams experience, the Yale, the Princeton, the Amherst, the Wesleyan experience. So it might involve coming in as a junior. It might mean maybe coming in as a sophomore and, maybe losing some credit, but gaining another year at that other institution. And again, our financial aid can certainly support that. I'll take this one question that came through as well, which I've heard several times before as well, and about are there any topics that are off limits to write about in the essays? And someone referred to kind of I think I've heard this, maybe it applies to interviews, the 3 Ds, death, divorce, and disease. They don't discuss any of those. I'm pretty sure I've read about all 3 of those sometime, probably today or even in the same essay in some cases. So I don't think there's any particular topic that's off limits. I think really what's more important is not kind of the topic itself, but what you're doing with it and what it's telling us about you. So if there's a way to relate it, to reflect on it in a way that has shaped the past experiences, has shaped a goal, I think there's reason to argue any one of those areas or otherwise could certainly be valuable, helping us get to know you and what really drives you, what gives you purpose, or how how your creativity or resilience has been shaped. So think of it not just about is this a topic that's a good topic to write about, or is this a topic that's a bad topic to write about? Think to yourself, is this a question that I can reflect on? I was really going to tell them the optimal things about me and how I'm going to take advantage of the opportunities at this college. And I think that's really the standpoint that I would take on that front to really write about that experience. And maybe one I'll pitch to you, Nick, as well, which has come a lot from our veterans, is specifically how much should they talk about their military experience in the application?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question, and I think it's also one that is really going to vary depending on the individual and their what they're hoping to get out of their application. I've talked to veterans who are like, I'm all in. I want you to know everything about my service. And I think that is totally fair and your decision to do. So in that case, maybe you're using service to school and the Vet Link Addendum to highlight one piece of your military service. And then you're also using your other essays in the Common App or the application itself to also talk about service as well. I've also talked with veterans who are like, I'm really looking to turn the page and start over, and I really want to focus on this part of my civilian life. Do I still need to talk about my military service? And the answer to that is you don't have to if you don't want to. My advice in those situations, though, would be it's helpful to give us that context somewhere in the application to say, this was part of my life. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. Here's um, my JSE, all this stuff. Here's what I've done. But I really don't want to talk about that. I want to highlight who I am today, what I'm hoping to accomplish now. So again, it's going to vary and depend on the individual applicant, but there is no right or wrong answer. Just give us that context.
Absolutely. And certainly to give another shout out to our colleagues at Service to School, which, as I mentioned, I think was mentioned a couple times, the Vet Link Addendum they provide is a really good way of compartmentalizing the most salient things about your military service, your MOS, the schools or awards you've gotten, and also your reflections to an extent, because there is an essay there as well. And this is a great way, regardless of how much you want to write about your military service in the application, it allows you to compartmentalize the most salient pieces so that you don't have to explain things or translate things in the valuable kind of resource or the valuable amount of time you have in your written essays, because you might run out of words from that point. It allows you to focus on other things, or maybe to broaden that and talk about different things beyond that as well. So I'd say it's a really good resource again at Service to School through the Vet Link Addendum to cover as well. I think it's bringing us a bit to the end of our 75 minutes together, but I want to add that too as a bigger picture thought as well, because there are similar questions about, well, how many different topics should I write in my essays? How many letters of recommendation should I submit? Or in that case, how much should I talk about this professional experience or this military experience? And my answer to that question is very commonly, well, think about how long is a piece of string? It's really as long as it needs to be. And it varies by the individual, by the individual need, and by the individual impact. So really, again, take our advice to heart in terms of how to apply these essays, these experiences within these tips and stay on top of deadlines and requirements and recommendations and so forth. But don't beyond that try to reverse engineer telling us what you think we want to hear. Really start with yourself. What, in terms of the essays, in terms of the recommendations, in terms of everything else, is going to provide the most salient and comprehensive picture about myself as an applicant, my strengths and my experiences, and what I want to do going forward. And know that the barriers of selectivity or academic perfection as perceived, or financial costs or whatever, we have ways of evaluating around that, contextualizing that. In the case of financial aid, finding ways to get around that. So I hope this has been a helpful snapshot in the approach to the college application process as a transfer, whether you're applying this year or in the future. As I mentioned, we do plan to send, hopefully, the recording of this production quality permitting to all applicants, but we will send at least something with more information similar to what you've seen on these slides as well, about general topics, but also about our individual institutions, so you can really get to know those institution specific questions about the colleges, about how we support our transfers, our veterans, our non-traditional students, and so forth as well. So in the interest of time, I want to again thank my colleagues here as well, including Noble, who could not be here tonight to represent Wesleyan, but who we're definitely thinking about and has done so much in terms of preparation for these programs too, that this would not be possible without him as well. So please do reach out to us. Please let us know as those questions arise, and we're happy to continue speaking with you among our teams going forward. So thank you all for attending live and for watching this recording. We appreciate your time and everything that you do as students, and for those of you who are supporting students as well. Please be in touch. Take care, be safe, and have a great night.